100 years ago in New York City, our organization, the ABC, was founded with a dedication to bringing standards and integrity to the sport of American 10 pins, better known today as bowling. As we celebrate our centennial, the ABC is proud to bring you this very special program, a celebration and tribute to the history and the art of this uniquely American sport, bowling.
How's it look, Eddie? He's running around there. He's got it. All right. Yes, sirree. There it is. 11 in a row. He needs one more for that perfect game. Beautiful, beautiful bowling. He is there, and he's loose, and he's free. Here he goes. This is it. This is the one. This is the one. Is he there? Is he not? Hit it. He got it. There it is. Look at there. Hey, 300. What a game. What shooting.
The perfect game. How magical that sounds, and what a thrill it is. It's a game that brings emotion, intensity, and excitement. It is bowling, America's perfect game. Imagine it's 1895. President Grover Cleveland was nearing the end of his second term in the White House. The Model T was barely an idea in the mind of a young man named Henry Ford. The newest American sport, basketball, was just 3 years old. Here at Beethoven Hall in New York City, the birth of the American Bowling Congress took place, September 9th, 1895. With this historic meeting, the standards were set for the modern game that became America's greatest participation sport. Hello, I'm George Plimpton. As a participatory journalist, I've had the unique opportunity to get an insider's look at many professional sports. From last-string quarterback for the Detroit Lions, even taking a turn as a goaltender for the Boston Bruins. As a participant myself, I find bowling to be a wonderful combination of skill, coordination, and execution. Besides, it's a particularly unique sport, since it knows no boundaries of age, size, or physical limitations. While there are few with the skills of a Don Carter or a Mike Albee, we can all participate in the game. We can all enjoy the competitive atmosphere, as well as quality time spent with family and friends. As you'll see, bowling is a sport with a long and rich history. And this is our opportunity to remember some of the people and events that have shaped bowling's past and its present. When did this unique sport, rolling a ball at pins, get its start? In Egypt, archaeologists have unearthed evidence of a bowling-like game played with 9 pins, or skittles, dating back more than 5,000 years. It was part of the recreational culture during the time of the pharaohs. The development of the more familiar 9 pins is credited in the 1500s to religious reformer Martin Luther, who enjoyed bowling with his family. The export of 9 pins to the New World, America, and its playing by early settlers is well documented. In 1819, Washington Irving made the first major literary reference to bowling in his classic story, Rip Van Winkle. And in the 1850s, future President Abraham Lincoln was known to spend his spare time going for strikes. How did 10-pin bowling displace 9 pins as the dominant form of the sport in America? Bowling historian, author, and former ABC secretary Al Matzell says there's at least one theory.
The one theory that is most prevalent is that in the early history of the game of bowling, maybe even in Rip Van Winkle's time, but there was a lot of gambling going on connected with the game of bowling an object at pins. And some of the eastern states adopted rules saying that you could not have, the bowling was a gambling game and therefore a violation of the law. And they referred to 9 pins in their statutes. And the story is that some enterprising guy decided to put a 10th pin in, and the law would no longer apply. And that's how, allegedly, 10 pins came into being.
As the American 10-pin game developed, there was a wide variance in local rules, playing surfaces, and methods of scoring. And this created the need for a single national governing body to standardize the game. Bowling's early history set the stage for the introduction of the American Bowling Congress. That story when we return.
Bowling, America's perfect game. A celebration of the 100th anniversary of the American Bowling Congress is being brought to you by Pabst. If you're looking for the beer taste you love at a lower price, Pabst Blue Ribbon is the only one. Get real. Get Pabst. By Masters of Design, the exclusive manufacturer of ABC's Centennial Rings. And by Linns. For the performance approach, it's American-made Linn shoes, the choice of better bowlers worldwide.
So, you enjoy watching those fancy beer commercials. Well, that's good, because a Clydesdale eats over 5 tons of hay a year.
Sold stamped with ABC Centennial and Linn logos in individually numbered heel plates. You can help the American Bowling Congress and improve your game by purchasing a pair of Linn Centennial bowling shoes. I personally recommend Linn shoes, and a contribution is being made to the ABC for each pair sold. Linn's, for the scoring edge.
You're a winner, and you deserve recognition. In sanctioned leagues and tournaments, 2 million awards are handed out each year by the national governing bodies of bowling, the American Bowling Congress, the Women's International Bowling Congress, and the Young American Bowling Alliance.
But your membership card entitles sanctioned league bowlers to more than the awards program.
There's more than $1 million each for college scholarships and veterans hospitals, bowlers supporting their communities.
Every member has a chance to compete in thousands of special events, locally, nationally, and internationally.
Sanctioned leagues also provide for the standardization of rules and supplies. Plus, league prize money is bonded.
Equipment testing and research helps advance the sport.
Your membership card does all that.
And every lane is inspected annually by local association volunteers. In short, everything runs smoother, and sanctioned leagues are a lot more fun.
So have more fun and help shape the future of bowling by making sure your league is sanctioned by the national governing bodies, the ABC, WIBC, or YABA.
You know, I think that 100 years tells you something. Not that you're old or whatever, you've done something right. And I think that we're all fortunate that the people starting out the ABC way back when have done things right, and the leaders all the way along have nurtured that. And you know, it's very exciting for 100 years and to do this special show and to be part of it. You know, it's very exciting for all of us.
During the late 1800s, bowling clubs were popular in the United States, especially in the East. But each bowled with its own set of rules and conditions. The distance from the pins, the lane surface, the ball size, and more would vary from club to club, so there was no way to compare scores or compete fairly.
In 1895, a group of what they call clubs in those days got together in New York City, from Brooklyn and New York and the environs, and said we should have an organization that had rules that we can follow and play the game the same at all locations. And that's how the organization really finally came into being, with the idea that we want a set of rules and a set of standards that we can all live by.
On September 9th, 1895, the American Bowling Congress was formed at Beethoven Hall in New York City. Debate at that meeting included discussion on establishing the rules and standards of the game, setting the pins exactly 12 inches apart, establishing the distance from foul line to head pin at precisely 60 feet, and adopting a scoring system that made 12 strikes in a row the perfect 300 game in bowling. These were the basic decisions and standards that ABC founders set in place and that remain even today. In the early years, running the Congress was a one-man job. ABC's first secretary was Sam Karpf, who ran the ABC first in New York and then in Dayton, Ohio. In 1907, Abraham Lincoln Langtry took over as ABC secretary. Langtry was secretary for 25 years, becoming ABC's first long-term leader and making Milwaukee ABC's home.
He was a firm believer in rule enforcement and in the principles of fair play and competition. And his leadership from 1907 to 1932 played a strong role in the development of the Congress's philosophy on gambling, on fair play, on the integrity of the sport.
Perhaps the most important job for the ABC was sanctioning lanes across the country. a proving condition so bowlers could compete on an even basis. There are still lanes operating today that are like a trip back in time to those early days. In Milwaukee, at Gene and Marcy's famed Holler House, you have to go downstairs to find the two alleys side by side. But for nearly 9 decades, they've taken their bowling seriously here, boasting the second oldest ABC-sanctioned lanes in America. The original wood for the alleys was laid in place in 1908, and since then, 4 generations have kept the pin supplies stocked and the shine on the boards. And even today, at the Holler House, manual pin setters are still used. That means pin boards. Veteran Kenny Gould started setting pins when he was 14.
Jumping back and forth, you're constantly moving for 5 hours. You stop in between shifts, which is probably maybe 5 minutes, and then back here jumping around again. That's what the cup of water and the sweat towel's for.
In the old days, pin setters would make 4 or 5 cents per line on the score sheet, plus tips. And it said a good pin setter could work faster than today's automatic machines. Not long after the Holler House opened its doors, a man who had become one of bowling's legends took up the game. Hank Marino, a slightly built, graceful man, was born in Sicily, immigrating to the United States in 1900. Marino settled in Milwaukee and started bowling at the age of 19. Just 4 years later, he came to national attention by winning the doubles crown with Frank Thoma at the 1914 ABC tournament. He kept winning, rolling 11 career 300 games, and by 1932, Marino was named America's Outstanding Bowler. Marino also competed internationally, winning 3 gold medals in a bowling event held prior to the 1936 Olympic Games in Hitler's Germany, and in the team division narrowly defeating another American team led by bowling legend Joe Norris.
We had 5 teams from America went over there, and Hank Marino's team beat us. The Hiles of Milwaukee beat us by 12 pins, and I found an error in the sheet. So Carl Hausen had a few drinks. We went down to see the head supervisor, and you know, he told us all these scores are sworn by Hitler, and they never make a mistake. So we lost the title by 12 pins.
Back in the 30s, bowling was just a little bit more formal, as you can see. Look at these guys. This is Joe Norris standing here. You're going to hear from him a little later how that tie he's wearing cost him a 300 game. Well, as you might expect, the ties went, and bowling shirt fashions have evolved right along with the sport. Over the years, it's a safe guess that 100 million bowling shirts have been worn. The shirts come in all colors, and many offer proof of the sense of humor of the participants. Some are plain, some are gaudy, but the character and fun of the sport is well preserved with a simple glance at some of the shirts worn by the millions who have enjoyed the game. When we return, you'll be amazed at the trick shots that captivated bowling fans of the 30s and 40s.
Hurry up, I don't want you to be late for school.
Sudden weakness on one side of the body may be a signal that something is wrong. If one arm feels weak, reach out for help. Learn the warning signs of stroke.
My hen is dancing in the farmyard.
Grandpa, I like this story.
I know you do, sweetheart.
If you have a sudden loss of vision in one eye,
She takes 2 steps forward.
look for help immediately. Learn the warning signs of stroke.
Sunday Night NFL on TNT looks at the linebacker. Plays defense, roguishly independent, loves to hit people, feeds off intimidation, brute force, relentless pursuits. So what do you think happens when he has to wait till Sunday night to play? Yeah, there's something about Sunday night football. Sunday Night NFL on TNT.
Red Sox, people are going to go nuts in this place.
Oh, yeah? Well, I'm not going to be one of them. You guys realize that if you combined the salaries of Cone and Sierra, you could pay the entire sanitation department of this town? And by watching this, you just contribute to the idea that you should spend insane amounts of money for something that's essentially nothing.
How much you pay for the water?
$4. What, it's from Norway.
Take a walk, will you, please?
We have time now to go back out to 53rd Street with PBA Hall of Fame bowler Dick Weber. How you doing, Dick?
I'm doing fine, thanks.
You're doing very well so far. What do you have for us now, Dick?
Well, we've got some vases down there, a little china.
We were going to give those to the audience, but I guess you decided to bust them. All right, Dick.
Okay.
Here we go.
Here we go.
All right. It's a beautiful ball. He throws a...
Dick Weber wasn't the first bowler to have fun in the name of promoting the game. In the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, trick shots captivated the American public. In the early days of exhibition bowling, top stars were sent out to display their skills to help promote the game. They soon discovered the attraction of trick shots. Millions were entertained and amazed by the skills of bowling stars like Joe Falcaro, and Nelson Burton Sr. Though they made it look easy, it took countless hours to perfect the shots. But in the world of bowling trick shots, none stood taller than a man named Andy Varipapa. Varipapa was colorful, but also a tough competitor who in his mid-50s won back-to-back all-star tournaments, bowling's premier event in 1946 and 47. But it was in entertaining that Varipapa's star shone brightest. He made his first movie short in 1934, and 25 others followed. In Varipapa's 70 years of bowling, he proved himself to be the sport's greatest showman.
He began with the big four, the 4, 6, 7, 10. Andy had his own special technique for this shot. And he said he'd like to have the American Bowling Congress adopt it so we could all improve our averages.
From trick shots to fierce team and individual competition, bowling is, in fact, one of our nation's oldest spectator sports. Crowds, hoopla, corporate sponsorships, and the big-time business of sport have their roots in the huge ABC tournament, the granddaddy of sporting competition on a national level.
Today, it's, well, you know, the ABC tournament predates the Rose Bowl, historically. And so it's one of the really grandfather national competitions in this country today.
The first tournament was held in January of 1901, when 6 new lanes were installed in downtown Chicago's Wellsbach building. That first year, 41 teams competed over 4 days for a total prize fund of $1,592. The ABC tournament created the aura of a big-time sporting event, with temporary lanes set up in public buildings and later on in huge convention centers. Today, construction crews can turn an empty convention center into one of the world's greatest sports arenas in just 3 weeks. Bowling legend Joe Norris competed in his first ABC tournament in 1929, and in 1986, he became the 3rd bowler in history to topple 100,000 pins in ABC tournament competition. Still active in 1995, Norris, who is now 86 years old, holds the total pinfall record for the ABC tournament.
Right now, it's 116,067. No, Fred Borden told me one day, he said, Joe, you didn't realize what you did. If I were to shoot 2,000 all events every year for 58 years, I won't have enough pins. And what's your chance to shoot 2,000 every year?
Norris is still looking ahead to the next challenge. 6 more years to break Bill Dorman's record of competing in 71 ABC tournaments.
I have 194 average for the 66 years. I'm very proud of that average. Now the question is, should I go for it? If I go for it, my average is going to shrink. So the way I'm sitting now, I think I'm going to try.
Because of the enthusiasm of men like Joe Norris, who love the game and compete for decades, the ABC Championship Tournament has continued to grow. In fact, the 1995 ABC Tournament, held at the National Bowling Stadium in Reno, Nevada, has the distinction of being the largest sporting competition of any kind ever conducted. In Reno, more than 91,000 bowlers competed for a total prize fund of $3.3 million, a long way from the tournament's humble beginnings.
Paul, in bowling, is it good if you throw a turkey?
Yeah, but you'll knock down more pins with a sheep.
Split, spare, strike, gutter ball, head pin, pocket. Bowling has a language all its own. The humorist Bill McLaughlin says some of bowling's terms are truly memorable.
I happen to have the Bible of bowling terms. Let's educate ourselves as to what these terms mean as far as bowling is concerned. Beer frame. Now, this one's pretty obvious. Usually the person with the fewest pins on the first ball in the 5th frame is required to buy liquid refreshments for everyone. Now, this is immediately followed by the bathroom frame. Baker system. This was a bowling center gimmick in which a donut was awarded for each strike anybody bowled. It was fun, but it led to the establishment of the IFBA, or the Incredibly Fat Bowlers Association. Turkey. This was another bowling center gimmick. The owners used to give turkeys to anyone who bowled 3 strikes in a row. Unfortunately, some wise guy changed the term to Cadillac, and a number of alleys went out of business. Channel. Very important. Channel. This refers to allowing the spirit of a good bowler to enter your body when you're having a lousy game. You'll hear someone say, "Don Carter, I feel your presence." Of course, if you don't know what you're doing, you could wind up channeling Jerry Lewis. "The lady want the ball in the hole now."
Bowling and television have been a perfect match for nearly 50 years. That and more when we return.
You only get 15 minutes of fame.
Unless you take someone else's. 11 strikes down. 10 pins up. 1 ball to go.
So, you enjoy watching those fancy beer commercials. Well, that's good, because a Clydesdale eats over 5 tons of hay a year. So every time you buy that beer, it's like you're treating a horse to dinner. But if you'd rather put your money where your mouth is, just say PB Army ASAP and have a Pabst. Because we don't spend a lot of money making fancy commercials. We spend it making great beer. And while some may not understand this philosophy, we're quite sure you will.
It's great getting back to nature, huh?
Yeah, finally some peace and quiet.
Fresh air, a campfire, and ESPN college football.
It's 4th and goal. A timeout has been called.
Play timeout for Coors Light for your chance to win $1 million. See the Coors Light beer display for details on how to play.
We need more Coors Light.
Watch ESPN college football with Georgia at Tennessee and Colorado State at Colorado.
And hello again, ladies and gentlemen. This is Chris Schenkel greeting you from the Brunswick Alleys in Paramus, New Jersey. And we're again happy to welcome you to another session, another week of championship bowling.
Pretty good camera angle, I think. You know, great bowlers like these have provided entertainment for generations. Bowling in the movies, bowling in radio, and especially television. Really a perfect match. Bowling has been a popular theme in TV sitcoms for decades now. And in the 1950s, bowling was the most televised sport, with nightly programs in Chicago, 4 TV shows a week in New York, and 3 bowling programs on the air in Detroit. It brought great bowlers like Ned Day,
Thrower in the old days. There's the double.
Bill Lillard, Dick Hoover, Steve Nagy, Don Carter,
the new champ,
and Dick Weber into the living rooms of millions of Americans. And there are always great voices for the game. Voices such as Chris Schenkel, a veteran bowling play-by-play man for nearly 40 years now.
Plays it. He is to the inside of middle, starting his approach. He comes up to the line with a 6-7-10.
Whispering Joe Wilson, who added drama to the game with his stage-whispered call.
Rudy Butler has a chance to string that now to a turkey. Gee, I hope you folks are getting out and bowl. If you have been doing it, you novices, isn't it a terrific game? On 5.
There it is. There it is.
is a turkey for Rudy Bettler.
The popular Billy Whaley, who after his own highly successful bowling career brought his special insight into the broadcast booth. And Fred Wolf, a former team bowler who turned to broadcasting on WXYZ radio in Detroit and who later hosted TV's popular Championship Bowling series.
Needs a strike. Will he get it? He throws. He's there. He's on his feet. Hitting carries one pitch. Oh, what a finish.
Men like Wolf, Wilson, Schenkel, and Whaley knew bowling inside and out. What happens when an announcer less familiar with the game takes the mic? Bowling legend Don Carter remembers.
And it was Harry Wismer, the football announcer, and they decided they wanted something different. So they had Harry do a couple of shows, and they wanted us, I was down there, he said, you want to look at the shows that he did? And I said, yeah. So he gets along, and somebody left a 7-10 split, and they said, Harry says, well, he left 2 pins, and they're pretty far apart.
Perhaps the most enduring voice in bowling is Sam Weinstein, known on radio as the 10-pin Tattler, and who hosted a Sunday afternoon television program called Bowl the Professor. One Sunday, Weinstein's show featured a guest bowler known more for his comic talents than for his bowling.
Get over there!
Hey, you picked off the hard one. Yes, sir.
Jerry and his wife, Patty, came over to Universal Bowling for a bowling ball one night. And make a long story short, Jerry agreed to come on my show on Sunday afternoon, and boy, he walked in blurry-eyed. He had been at the Shapery until about 4 or 5 that morning, and here we are on the air at 1:30 on a Sunday afternoon. But he is blurry-eyed as he was. I'll tell you, when that red light came up on that camera, he was Mr. Showbiz, and he put on a great show. We really loved that show.
While Babe Ruth was still playing for the Yankees and Don Carter was 9 years old, Weinstein went on the air in Chicago with his weekly radio program. From its debut, August 24th, 1935, to a farewell broadcast in August 1995, the 10-pin Tattler logged an amazing 60 years on the air in Chicago, earning Weinstein recognition from the Guinness Book of World Records for the most durable radio program. Not long before the 10-pin Tattler first hit the radio airwaves, the ABC Bulletin was launched. In 1934, it became the ABC's first in-house publication, communicating bowling news and information to the growing numbers of bowlers across the country. The Bulletin, which later evolved into today's Bowling Magazine, was the brainchild of ABC's third secretary, Elmer Baumgarten, who took the helm in 1931. And during his 20-year term as secretary, ABC membership increased tenfold to 320,000. In 1951, the ABC's top post was placed in the hands of Frank Baker.
Now, that man I knew very well. I admired, respected him, worked with him. And I think the best thing I could ever tell you about him is that if something came up in relation to the sport of bowling, his first question would be, is it good for the game?
Baker served the ABC until 1972, guiding the Congress in overhauling its programs to better serve bowlers. And in making sure stringent testing procedures were established for the advancing technology in pins and pin setters, technology that would lead to a boom in bowling's popularity. Remember the great Bud team in 38-58? That story after this.
Whether at work or on the lanes, you're sure to be recognized as an ABC member with this limited edition, richly coated 24-karat gold Centennial ring. Or show your pride with this stylish, handcrafted solid sterling silver member's ring. And don't miss out on the striking limited edition ABC Centennial Stein. Each numbered Stein is 7.5 inches high, features a solid pewter lid and a ceramic insert with the ABC Eagle logo. To order, call Cardinal Marketing at 1-800-999-BOWL. Visa MasterCard accepted, satisfaction guaranteed.
Looking for more strikes and more bowling fun? Then look no further than Going for the Gold with Team USA coach Fred Borden. As today's top instructor, Coach Borden will show you ways to reach your full potential. Professional bowlers Mike Albee and Leila Wagner work with Coach Borden to show you the sure way to higher scores. This 12-lesson video is available for only $24.95.
Birdie.
We had a lot of camaraderie and really enjoyed it and the fun that went along with. There wasn't a lot of money to be made, but it was just fun doing bowling and being with the guys.
Ah, yes, just bowling and being with the guys. I think this is the perfect spot to tell you about team bowling, and these guys in particular. They were the great Budweisers of St. Louis, and they enjoyed a magical night back in March of 1958 when they established a record that would be the symbol of excellence in the sport for years to come. And the number was 38-58, as familiar to bowling fans as 714 is to baseball fans. With 5 men on a team, and each playing 3 games, that works out to an average score of just a little over 257 per man per game. With just 4 open frames for all 5 men in the 3-game series, there was no doubt the Buds were hot.
We've always anticipated possibly beating the record. I think the Herman team out of St. Louis at 37-97.
Going into the 3rd game, we felt we had a chance at the record. And that was very exciting because it had lasted like 19, 20 years.
And the night, March 12th, 1958, the time of the record was broken, I didn't know it. You know, I just knew we had a big game, big scores, and that was it.
I was after Don. We had Carter first, I was second, Pat Patterson was third, Hennessy was fourth. We put Weber at last because he had that big hook and nobody could follow him.
And we had a couple of players that just had outstanding nights that night, and Tom Hennessy and Ray Bluth, and I think they both had 800, and there was a couple of 300 games in there.
I always remember the second game. I think Tom Hennessy had 300, and the first game I had 267, 267. Tom got on me. He said, "Come on, let's get going." And the last game I had 300, so I told Tom, I said, "Oh, is that okay?" You know.
But after we all finished, why? They finally told me that they broke the record, and you know, it was a big thrill, and that lasted for 30-some years.
Yeah, we had a very exciting night. We hung around there for a couple of hours, and it was we got a lot of calls, and I can remember the night very well. It was very, very exciting.
38-58 became almost a magic number. But in February of 1994, the Hearst Bowling Supplies team of Luzerne, Pennsylvania, enjoyed their own magical night. The new record, 38-68, a remarkable score that has given every team bowler in the world a new number to shoot at. But the Bud record, I don't think it will ever be forgotten. How did automatic pin setters revolutionize bowling? We'll look at pins and pin setters when we come back.
You're a winner, and you deserve recognition. In sanctioned leagues and tournaments, 2 million awards are handed out each year by the national governing bodies of bowling, the American Bowling Congress, the Women's International Bowling Congress, and the Young American Bowling Alliance.
But your membership card entitles sanctioned league bowlers to more than the awards program.
There's more than $1 million each for college scholarships and veterans hospitals, bowlers supporting their communities.
Every member has a chance to compete in thousands of special events, locally, nationally, and internationally.
Sanctioned leagues also provide for the standardization of rules and supplies. Plus, league prize money is bonded.
Equipment testing and research helps advance the sport.
Your membership card does all that.
And every lane is inspected annually by local association volunteers. In short, everything runs smoother, and sanctioned leagues are a lot more fun.
So have more fun and help shape the future of bowling by making sure your league is sanctioned by the national governing bodies, the ABC, WIBC, or YABA.
So, you enjoy watching those fancy beer commercials. Well, that's good, because a Clydesdale eats over 5 tons of hay a year. So every time you buy that beer, it's like you're treating a horse to dinner. But if you'd rather put your money where your mouth is, just say PB Army ASAP and have a Pabst. Because we don't spend a lot of money making fancy commercials. We spend it making great beer. And while some may not understand this philosophy, we're quite sure you will.
For 150 years, Brunswick has been leading the way with names like Mercury, the world's leader in marine power, Sea Ray, the world's finest sport boats, cruisers, and yachts, Bayliner, the world leader in pleasure boats, Zebco, America's fishing favorite, and Brunswick, the #1 name in bowling. The Companies of Brunswick, building for the future for 150 years.
1939, I started setting pins in Indianapolis, Indiana, on the old spikes, and rolled my first game with a cork bowling ball. My father taught me the 5-step delivery, and been bowling ever since.
Bowling pins are marvels of precision in weight, size, and balance, but it wasn't always that way. For decades, bowling pins were made from a solid block of maple. Today's pins have a laminated wood core covered with plastic. But while many factors go into the construction of a pin, the rigid specifications of the American Bowling Congress must be met.
There was 1 million lines of testing on the first plastic-coated pin before it got approval, because we wanted to be sure, or ABC wanted to be sure, that the introduction of the plastic coating would not change the scoring level of the competition.
Through rules established at the very formation of the ABC, bowling pins are a standard 15 inches tall and are arranged in a 36-inch triangle placed 12 inches apart from center to center. Without uniform rules, chaos could ensue. Imagine visiting your local bowling center and finding these objects facing you at the end of the lane. These lanes were state-of-the-art back in 1951. Bowling was in the midst of a technological revolution. We're here in the Bowlodrome in Mount Clemens, Michigan, which was the first place to install the new automatic pin setters. And soon these machines, pioneered by AMF in the mid-40s, they began to put pin boys out of work and for good. While no one disputes the value of the automatics, to hear some of bowling's greats tell it, setting pins was what got them into the game.
Well, I got started as in grade school, and they built a bowling center close to the grade school area, and they needed pin boys. And that's time during World War II where they couldn't get help, so I started setting pins, and that's how I became involved in the game of bowling.
It seems that we all started sort of like pin boys. The bowling center was built on my way to school in Dallas, and as a kid being curious, I stopped in one day, and I think I bowled a little bit first, but then I found out I could earn a little money by setting pins. And finally, when the automatic pin setter was developed, I used to wonder where all the good bowlers were coming from, because all the guys I knew that were good bowlers had become pin boys before they became better bowlers.
In the 1950s, the ABC approved several automatic pin setters for sanctioned play. And the new machines helped revolutionize the game, making bowling centers less labor-intensive and able to offer bowlers more hours on the lanes.
And if you look at the history of growth from the time that the pin spotters were introduced and for the next 10 years, compared to the growth for the previous 50 years, it's just terribly dramatic. So the automatic pin spotter was a very important part of the game's development.
In just 10 years, the number of bowling centers jumped by more than 50% to over 6,600 nationwide. And with league bowling one of the most popular social activities of the post-war era, American Bowling Congress membership grew from 1 million in 1946 to nearly 4 million by 1963. The American 10-pin game has one of the oldest Hall of Fames in all of sport. When we come back, we'll have a look inside the Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum.
Two captains, two generations are joining forces. I need your help to save the future. Let's go! And boldly go where no adventure has gone before. Eliminate them.
24th century isn't so tough.
Let's try and cheat death together.
Warp 1, engage!
Star Trek Generations.
It's the
model year-end sales drive. Time for the wildest savings of the year on Ford F-Series. Now, start with $2,100 in savings on America's best-selling full-size pickup 18 straight years. Cool off with factory air at no extra charge. Then get your best model year-end sales drive deal. So head out on the highway in a new F-Series from your Quality Plus Ford dealer.
Meticulous, huh?
Oh, my God. I used to use his hairbrush at training camp. And he'd say, Arthur, I wish you would not use my hairbrush. I said, what do you think? I got the names?
This weekend, ESPN's lining up for two great rivalries. Peyton Manning and the Vols welcome Georgia to Knoxville. Then, Colorado State takes on the Buffs in Boulder. Georgia versus Tennessee at 6:45. Colorado State versus Colorado at 9:45. Tomorrow on ESPN.
Congratulations. I was saying before that last one, I'd never seen a perfect game before. I'd never seen a perfect game in baseball, a no-hitter. I'd never seen a hole-in-one, but I've seen that perfect game in bowling.
The smooth, round, three-holed object you see today has gone through an incredible evolution in the past 100 years. Early bowlers threw a palm ball, since finger holes were a 20th century innovation. When finger holes were introduced, the standard was the two-hole ball, rather than the familiar three-hole ball used today. At the turn of the century, most bowling balls were made from a dense wood called lignum vitae. So heavy and strong, it was called iron wood. When bowling began to boom in the 60s and 70s, a steady stream of bowling balls constructed of rubber, plastic, urethane, or combinations of materials came into play. You may be surprised to learn that a bowling ball endorsement led to the first $1 million sports contract, and this way back in the early 60s.
I can't even explain how that felt. That was great. Yeah, I had been with Brunswick for, I think, 11 years, and I always wanted to have my own bowling ball. And at that time, they wouldn't do it. They didn't want to do it. And Ebonite got a hold of me and wanted to sign me and wanted to put a classic ball on the market, a pro ball. And so it didn't take long for me to grab that opportunity. And that much money I didn't think I'd ever make.
Today, literally dozens of newly designed bowling balls are marketed each year. In 1972, bowling's governing bodies joined forces to better serve their more than 6 million members. This magnificent building in Greendale, Wisconsin, is known as Bowling Headquarters, home to the ABC, along with the Women's International Bowling Congress, the Young American Bowling Alliance, and USA Bowling. The ABC Bowling Hall of Fame, created in 1941, is the third oldest in the sports world, behind only golf and baseball. Originally housed at ABC headquarters in Milwaukee, in 1978, bowling's Hall of Fame needed a new home. St. Louis was the city selected, and Al Matzel was the man who headed the effort to make the National Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum a reality. The dream became reality on June 1st, 1984, when the Bowling Hall of Fame and Museum opened its doors to the world.
The museum is always more than anyone expects. It is a 50,000 square foot, three-story museum that tells that 5,000-year history, houses the halls of fame of the various parts of bowling, and has 8 functioning lanes, 4 of the old-time lanes, which you see behind me. And that contrast between the 4 modern lanes and these is just a good example of the way in which this museum is presented. You tend to see the old and the new. You see the development almost subconsciously as you walk through the building and enjoy the various exhibits.
A special Hometown Heroes exhibit provides an interactive database with records of every sanctioned 300 game or 800 series rolled by every bowler in every city in the country.
Thousands and thousands of names in this particular operation, but it recognizes that participant who's had that 15 minutes of glory in his home bowling lane and shot that 300 game maybe one time in his life, but his name is there, a record of the date he shot it.
The Hall of Fame and Museum is a truly delightful place, a tribute to bowling's history and its impact on our national culture. One of bowling's all-time stars is Dick Weber, a member of the famed Budweisers, and one of the most consistent performers the game has ever seen. Weber is the only bowler to have won PBA tournaments in 5 different decades. His love of the game doesn't prevent him having fun with it, though. In 1964, Weber was airborne, rolling a game on a special lane set up in an airplane. And in the 90s, he helped promote the fun of bowling on late-night network television.
All right, let's go back out to 53rd Street, ladies and gentlemen, all night long. And Dick, are you ready?
Yes, sir.
What are you shooting at now, Dick?
I'm shooting at a television.
A television.
All right, here we go.
A television with a videotape of pins on it. Okay, here we go. Dick Weber shooting at a television set.
Well, bowling on 53rd Street in New York City was something else. The first time was 1993, November 17th, and I bowled against a cake and lighted candles and brandy glasses and eggs and things like that. But Dave Letterman's a great guy to be around, and of course the crowd outside on 53rd Street, they make it easier for you because they're always cheering you on.
Here we go.
Here we go. What are we shooting at now?
We're shooting a video camera.
Oh, it's a video camera. Oh, this will be very exciting. All right, let's take a look at it.
Yeah, it will if I hit it.
Dick Weber on the lanes. Very, very difficult shot.
What's the pressure like when the greats roll a perfect game? Insight on that after this.
The American Bowling Congress and the Lynn Shoe Company are offering a one-time only ABC 100th Anniversary Bowling Shoe. The shoes are gold stamped with ABC Centennial and Lynn logos and individually numbered heel plates. You can help the American Bowling Congress and improve your game by purchasing a pair of Lynn Centennial bowling shoes. I personally recommend Lynn shoes, and a contribution is being made to the ABC for each pair sold. Lynn's, for the scoring edge.
Getting the proper feel is important to every bowler. Grip inserts provide you with that proper feeling on every shot. That's why today's top professionals choose only Contour Power Grips, and you should too.
Contour Power Grips. The best bowlers in the world choose Contour Power Grips. Ask your Pro Shop professional for Contour Power Grips, the grips that legends use.
Folks, today's game was a wild one. The Angels catcher must have logged 2 or 3 miles behind the plate just trying to catch Lee Smith. He was airmailing him all over the map. Hey, Lee, I think you could learn to harness that wild stuff if you just set up that screaming fastball with an occasional curve. Then Lee Smith,
the banker, will deduct even bigger savings. Fly out, get a toaster. Strike out, get a free blend.
Point was, I did my job first before I was ready to collapse. And that's the key to being a champion. Do your job, and then whatever you feel like later, let it happen. But don't kid yourself. You're gonna be uptight, but learn to bowl uptight, or learn to swing a bat uptight, and then nobody can stop you.
While there are many great bowling tournaments, perhaps no title is more coveted by top bowlers than an ABC Masters Championship. ABC Masters began as a double elimination tournament on the ABC tournament lanes in St. Paul in 1951. Lee Juglard of Detroit won the event, defeating Joe Willman before 2,600 fans to win $620. The Masters is bowling's premier match play event and has become one of bowling's richest tournaments. The list of Masters champions is a who's who of bowling. Dick Huber won back-to-back titles in 1956 and 1957. Don Carter won the Masters in 1961. Earl Anthony picked up 2 ABC Masters wins in 1977 and 1984. And Mike Albee won in 1989 and 1995. Altogether, more than 15 Hall of Fame bowlers have taken the ABC Masters title, making it one of bowling's showcase events. Calling a quarterback sneak for the Detroit Lions, defending penalty shots in the goal for the Boston Bruins, or even pitching horseshoes with the President of the United States. I've gone through these. I've experienced some pressure in my time. But going for the perfect game, that must be a defining moment of pressure.
It's pretty intense. They ask me many times what's tougher, a hole-in-one in golf or bowling. 300, there's no comparison because there's no pressure. in a hole-in-one, you get up and hit the ball. But it builds in bowling with every strike, builds a little bit more.
You don't ever get used to that feeling because, to me, you need a little bit of that excitement, a little bit of that adrenaline flowing, that nervousness to keep you on your edge.
You're going to be keyed up. Any great athlete has the adrenaline popping. You know what makes the difference between the Hall of Famers and also-rans that are good bowlers or good athletes? It's a guy that can produce in the foxhole.
I remember my first one, I had 11 perfect strikes, and I got up in the 10th frame, and I thought, well, I'm not even nervous, you know. I don't even remember going to the line. My legs were rubbery, and so happened the ball, I hit my mark, but it crossed over, and I carried a crossed over strike for 300, the first one I ever had.
In my time, I shot 13 300s. Like I say, I used to get wrapped. I have 8 298s. I have 1 297 and 1 296. I shot a 296. You know, one time we bowled with long sleeves, white shirt. We had white flannels, white trousers, like Budweiser, you know, and we wore ties. And I got part of the tie caught into the thumb hole, the 12th ball, and I went like this here, and I almost choked myself. I left the bucket up, 296. You know, I was nervous.
I remember doing a TV show in Minnesota, and I was perspiring, and we were just warming up for the tape. And the guy says, why are you so intense right now? I says, because when I put the lights on and it's going to become real, I'm going to have the same heartbeat, the same emotion that I'm not now practicing. And if I know I can bowl good with that emotion here, I can carry it over to the TV show. But if I'm going to bowl la-di-da-di here in practice, and then the bell's going to ring and I'm going to tighten up, there's a different Salvino bowling. Now, which one's going to do what? I want to know what I'm going to do, so I started tensing myself up.
Who is the greatest bowler of all time? That debate when we come back.
So, you enjoy watching those fancy beer commercials. Well, that's good, because a Clydesdale eats over 5 tons of hay a year. So every time you buy that beer, it's like you're treating a horse to dinner. But if you'd rather put your money where your mouth is, just say PB Army ASAP and have a Pabst. Because we don't spend a lot of money making fancy commercials. We spend it making great beer. And while some may not understand this philosophy, we're quite sure you will.
Looking for more strikes and more bowling fun? Then look no further than Going for the Gold with Team USA coach Fred Borden. As today's top instructor, Coach Borden will show you ways to reach your full potential. Professional bowlers Mike Albee and Leila Wagner work with Coach Borden to show you the sure way to higher scores. This 12-lesson video is available for only $24.95.
Coming up next, live here on ESPN, 3 of the world's greatest decathletes, Dan O'Brien, Robert Zmelik, and Chris Huffins, will do battle through the 10 events of the Classic Decathlon in just 1 hour. The 60-minute decathlon coming up next, live.
Bowling, America's perfect game. A celebration of the 100th anniversary of the American Bowling Congress has been brought to you by Pabst. If you're looking for the beer taste you love at a lower price, Pabst Blue Ribbon is the only one. Get real, get Pabst. And by Linns. For the performance approach, it's American-made Linns shoes, the choice of better bowlers worldwide.
Throughout its history, bowling has been a sport for every man. From the league bowler on a Tuesday night to the sport's first million-dollar man, Earl Anthony.
Through the company I went to work for, they had a company bowling league, and they asked me to join the league. And I said, well, I've never bowled before. Oh, come on, you're supposed to be a good athlete. Try it. So I tried it, and I got really enthused about it. Any kind of competition pumps me up. So what happened then, 3 or 4 years down the road, I got my average up to about 217 my 4th year. And there were a good friend I met during bowling local tournaments, Johnny Gunther, said, come on and bowl some of the pro tournaments this summer. You can room with me. So I took a vacation from my job, and I bowled 3 tournaments, Seattle, Portland, and Spokane, tried to learn as much as I could, then went home and practiced what I thought I had learned. And I practiced for the next 6 years. The last, I'd say 2.5 to 3 years before I actually went on the tour in 1970, I averaged over 300 games a week practice. And so I wanted to come out on the tour ready.
Who is the greatest bowler ever? The debate has raged endlessly since the American Bowling Congress was founded in 1895. Can a superstar of days gone by be compared with today's great players? That's the question Bowling Magazine put to its readers in its special ABC Centennial issue. The contenders in that poll: Hank Marino, Joe Norris, Don Carter, Dick Weber, Earl Anthony, Mark Roth, and Mike Albee. With such a rich past, what are some of the goals of the future for bowling? One is to be recognized as an Olympic sport. It is a quest that began in 1936, and since then, bowling has taken several significant steps towards reaching the Olympic dream. In 1988, bowling was an exhibition sport at the Summer Olympics in Seoul, Korea. And there's reason for more optimism for the future.
In 1996 in Atlanta, we will have competition, although it will not be official competition. It will be conducted about 3 days before the opening ceremonies of the games. It'll be right in the Athletes Village. It'll be on the Georgia Tech campus, where some bowling lanes are going to be cleaned up, so they're looking really sharp for the world to watch. And we'll have the 12 best men and women athletes in the world there on national television.
Well, hopefully bowling will get to the Olympics, period, and it's something I would love to have a shot at doing. Whether I ever get there or not, you know, it'd be more of a goal that bowling gets there.
Will bowling have a future in the Olympic Games? Perhaps no other sport is more deserving. The skill, precision, endurance, and concentration required by a successful competitive bowler rivals that of any other sport. And what about the game itself? Why has bowling enjoyed such popularity in America over these past 100 years?
It shows we probably did something right for 100 years, and we hope we have 100 years more. I think, again, it gets back to the standards and integrity of the sport. We can never lose sight of our mission, and that's the rules and standards of the game.
It's a great sport because today with the bumper bowling, we get them when they're 2 years old, and we keep them till they run out of breath. You know, we have a lot of them bowling up in their 80s and 90s in these leagues down here in Florida. And it's something that the entire family can compete, and many times on an even basis. You know, we have at times out here 4 generations out there bowling.
You got to take your frustrations out on something, and bowling gives you that opportunity, because you can take that bowling ball and sling it down into those 10 pins, and they come back up again. And one other thing, when you sling that bowling ball, it always comes back to you.
We've spent nearly an hour together, and yet it seems we've still not done justice to this age-old game, this wonderful sport of bowling. There are so many more stories and insights and inspirations to draw from this game that so many of us have played and enjoyed. I think H. Thomas Steele got it right in his book, Bowlerama. He wrote, "Bowling is pure Americana. Where else in our fast-paced world do we find the weekly camaraderie of the bowling leagues?" And it's true. It brings out the best in us. It's competitive, it's social, it's fun. Bowling really is America's perfect game.
Oh man, this is the closest I've ever come to seeing a perfect game. This is the closest I've ever come. I've never seen a no-hitter in baseball. I've never seen a perfect game in bowling. I've never seen a hole-in-one, for that matter. One more ball. One more ball. Holy mackerel. One more ball. One more big shot. And Nagy has never seen this pair of alleys before at Fates Neeson in Chicago.